Hi, my name is Marcia Moreno Baez, and I'm a teaching professor at the School of Marine and Environmental Programs at UNE. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Charles, for inviting me to talk to your students about how GIS technology can help the oceans, or how GIS can help marine scientists. I will share my screen with you. So first of all, for all of you who have not heard about GIS, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems and is built upon the science of geography. So imagine a system that combines powerful mapping and visualization tools with a very strong framework for data integration, analysis, and modeling. So the fundamental questions that GIS help us answer are the what and where. And these questions are needed to solve current problems about our changing climate, our ecosystems, our population, health. But if we talk specifically about coastal and marine environments, then these tools can help us answer questions such as where to best establish, enforce additional marine protected areas, particularly if we're talking about the high seas, where to implement mitigation and adaptation measures to a changing climate, where to address hotspots of rapidly declining ocean oxygen or increasing ocean acidification, where and how to sustainably feed a rapidly growing population with ocean-based protein. So, and I can continue on giving you more questions, but these are just some of the questions that you can think of where GIS can play an important role for you to answer better. But going back to how this technology can help us, well, geospatial technology brings a common spatial language, which are maps. Geospatial technology also provides a proven framework to measurement and analysis. This is an example of a map or an application of the Bahamas before and after the Hurricane Dorian. These kind of tools are super important and powerful to help us understand the impact of different events, but also help decision makers to make better decisions. Also, GIS fosters collaboration, but most importantly, action. GIS can help us develop applications where people can engage and provide their opinions, provide information, expertise, and or different information that will help us make better decisions as well. So years ago, I worked at an organization called World Wildlife Fund in the Gulf of California, Mexico. And the work that we did there with this organization was about planning for conservation. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because the Gulf of California is considered one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world. So what we did with this organization was to work with more than 100 scientists to prioritize the conservation actions and conservation research for the Gulf of California. So GIS helped us to not only collect the information from all of these amazing experts, but also help us integrate this information to be analyzed and decide what was best in terms of actions that needed to be implemented to conserve these important areas in the Gulf of California. And of course, all of this information didn't just stay there. All of this information helped creating more and new ideas to continue on working in these important biodiverse areas. For example, this information was later utilized to create a general model for designing networks of marine reserves. So when I was working in the World Wildlife Fund, my work not only entailed the integration of information and analysis of information, but also it allowed me to go to different communities and teach GIS. One of those communities was Cayos Cochinos in Honduras, which are 3 tiny islands where World Wildlife Fund was working at that time. And we went to these communities to teach not only the people who were working in World Wildlife Fund, but also the communities on how to use GIS to generate information. It was such an amazing experience because not only the members of the community got involved, but also the kids. You know, what I was talking about is adults, but also the kids got involved, and they also took the course. And let me tell you that some of the kids were even better than some of the adults that were trying to learn the GIS. But what amazed me the most is that curiosity that kids had, because they wanted to learn not only how to use GIS and create maps, but also they wanted to learn how to use GPS to map, you know, their island. And they were super curious, and that was very encouraging, particularly because I know that the community was empowered now by having this knowledge and on how to use geospatial technology. So another example that I can bring is the work that I have done with more small-scale fisheries. And this particular project is a project that I worked while I was doing my PhD. We work in 17 different communities in the Northern Gulf of California, and we wanted to integrate their local ecological knowledge. So the way we used GIS in this particular example was through a process of collecting information using printed maps, and we would work with them to map what they were fishing, where they were fishing, and when they were fishing. And GIS helped us digitize all of this information in such a rapid way that we were able to see this first picture of the fishing activity in the Gulf of California, which was the first time that anybody would ever see something like this. So GIS play a huge role in mapping, integration, analysis, and communication of the information. Now, after that, I continue my work on small-scale fisheries, but this time when I joined Scripps Institution of Oceanography in California, we didn't want to use printed map. Now we kind of wanted to go forward and use a different technology to do the same work, but at a more fine detail or fine spatial detail. So we use these data loggers, GPS, and fishermen would take those devices with them for their trips to track fishing activity. So some of the results that we got were pretty amazing. Again, we were tracking fishing activity, but now we were using technology, and the spatial resolution that we were getting was pretty amazing. We were able now to see at a finer scale what was going on. Now, this took us to a different level as well in terms of technology development. We were using these devices, as I showed you, but eventually we decided we needed to design our own devices, and this was to be not only more effective on what we were doing, but also to have more control on the data that we were producing. So that was pretty amazing. Now, this brings me to a super important aspect of GIS, people. And even though I didn't mention that at the beginning of the presentation, people is also part of GIS, of Geographic Information Systems. We wouldn't be able to generate all this information without the people that got involved. In this case, community members, fishers, and this is super important because it took us to develop the citizen science program for this particular project. And let me tell you that citizen science is very powerful. And the reason why is because it helps us to close the loop in terms of how you bring science back to people, or they generate science. and they are able to understand the importance of science. They are able to understand the importance of their resources. And this is powerful because it helps people to care, right? And it empowers people as well, as I said before, on generating their own data and knowing, better how to solve problems. Now, another way that GIS can help us is by allowing us to access data. So technology has brought us the opportunity to empower GIS with big data, and the success of geospatial applications in any project will depend heavily on the selection, collection, sorting, and end use of data. For example, a big effort by organizations such as UN Sustainable Development, Microsoft, National Geographic, and ESRI is the ArcGIS Living Atlas Indicators of the Planet. So this portal provides access to a series of 18 different indicators of the planet. So by the way, this particular portal is one of the largest data sets, and it provides information and also application. And there are a lot of advances in geospatial technology to solve big problems that we are currently facing. For example, geospatial technology like GPS, GIS, and remote sensing have been made major advances in both theoretical and applied basis for studying our oceans. And these technologies have become key components of interdisciplinary research and resource management practices. The area of focus that I can summarize quickly for you in terms of like what GIS can do for marine scientists is research in exploration, like seafloor mapping, sampling, geomorphological studies, benthic habitat mapping, etc. Then ecosystems and environment, for example, coral reef health and structure, mangrove assessment, estuary restoration, etc. Then we have coastal protection and marine spatial planning. Then we have recreation and adventure, map-based tracking of assets and participants, crowdsourced data from recreational vessels. Then we have fisheries and aquaculture management, like analysis of trends in nearshore and estuarine capture of fisheries globally, etc. I'm just bringing some examples that you can think of, but there are hundreds of examples that I can bring. So what I encourage you to do is to explore a little bit more about what GIS can do for marine scientists. And you can basically do a quick Google search and you'll find a lot of information. There are also new technology being developed constantly, like the marine drones. But just think about the possibilities in terms of technology, not only the use of existing technology, but the development of new technology. So I encourage you to start thinking about that as well as an opportunity to develop in the near future. So I brought you some examples. I talked a little bit about my experience on bringing GIS into my work. I have other examples, of course, but you can, if you want to talk about it, if you have some ideas, please don't hesitate to talk to me about it. But one last thing that I want to say is that the ultimate goal of introducing GIS to all of you is not just because we want you to use the tools or we want you to learn how to make maps, which of course I think are important skills for you to have, but the ultimate goal is to foster spatial thinking and critical thinking and problem solving. So all of this is basically to empower you as a future scientist, as a future entrepreneur, and to empower you as a future decision maker in the workforce. So really GIS has never been about the tools, but is about empowering you to a greater goal. So with this, I am done, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you learned a little bit about what GIS can do for marine science, to empower people, to empower you, And if you have any additional question, please don't hesitate to contact me here. I'm going to leave my email.